the Lord of all that is Gotoh.
Once in a while I get emboldened by the flame of ambition and build a guitar. And it's been some time since my Dark Souls guitar made few of you reach me about making a guitar inspired by Elden Ring. So that's what I bring you today, let's get started. As always, the project begins with preparing my lumber, so all the wood is flat, squared and cut into usable dimensions. I've picked this maple for the neck of the guitar. Maple is traditionally used for guitar necks because of its strength, stiffness and weight. This one is curly maple, that means it has these beautiful horizontal striations. I wanted to have my maple neck laminated with darker wood, so I've cut these strips of Michaelis Halig tree to make a 7-piece laminated neck. When I make a neck blank, I always make it longer than necessary, so I can insert dowels in the ends of the blank, which helps to keep the strips aligned when clamping them down. The wood glue would be very slippery otherwise, and of course after the glue is cured I eventually can cut down these ends of the blank which contain the dowels. Next day, when the wood glue was cured, I could route channels for carbon reinforcement rods and for a truss rod. Then I could finally cut out the rough shape of the neck on my bandsaw and square the edges using a flush trim bit with a upper bearing and a straight edge. There's no more reliable way in my woodshop to make something straight and squared, not even my jointer. The material of choice for the fretboard will be more classy this time. I decided to make it from ebony, and so far I haven't shown you any Elden Ring element about this build. I've played all the Dark Souls games, but prior to this project I actually haven't played Elden Ring yet. So, of course I had to buy the game to, give it at least half an hour so I can grasp some inspiration for my guitar and to at least have a small clue what's the game about. And so I got an idea for the fret markers to make them resemble a simplistic version of the Great Runes. These are dropped by the main bosses of the game and you can restore their power at Divine Towers to get your attributes a bit boosted. I bought this plunge holder for my Dremel so I can use really thin router blades, and using guide bushings I was able to route these 7 great runes. It's the great runes of Renala, Redan, Morgoth, Rykard, Godric, Melania and Moog. The Moog's and Melania's great runes reach over 3 frets, so they are as big as the rest. The trickiest great rune to make was Godric's great rune, which had the most difficult geometry to nail. I filled the runes with epoxy and mixed with colorful powders, and I was really lucky that I could mix all the colors using just one makeup powder palette, which can be purchased in these stores for women. Otherwise I would need to purchase a bag of powder of each color separately. I always wanted to make the fret tanks invisible. You can see the difference between visible and invisible fret tanks at these pictures. CNC is used to achieve that, but again, I found a way around buying CNC and used my 0.8mm routed Dremel bit to route a thin channel which ends just before the edge of the fretboard. And of course the Dremel holder was guided by the straight edge, and each spacing between frets was carefully measured. Having my fret slots done, I could use my 14-inch radius sanding block to make my fretboard convex, and then I glued the fretboard to the neck with thick epoxy. For my side dots I used a thin hollow brass rod and filled the tiny holes in the middle with ebony dust and CA glue. After the arm workout, I sanded the rasp marks with some low-grit sanding paper, so it looks at least a bit nice, and then drilled holes to the part of the neck which goes through the body in order to insert dowels, which, again, will hold the body wings at their place during glue-up. As well as for the laminated neck, I chose Halig tree wood for the guitar body and made it flat on my glucose-powered CNC. Then I took it to my bandsaw to cut the shapes and glued the wings to the neck. The whole body is now 7mm recessed deeper to the fretboard. That's because I'll be adding a curly maple top, which I'm about to stain black eventually. Gluing the maple top was a nightmare for me because of the slipping. It was literally gliding all over the place, but in the end I somehow managed to secure it in its position. Now to the main design of this build, and that's the Elden Ring symbol. As well as the great runes in the fretboard, I'm about to make this a more simplistic version and also make it more flow with the shape of the body. So I'm about to modify the symbol a tiny bit just to make it look more seamless. For example, the rune of death, which is in the top of the symbol, will be a bit warped to go along with the horns of the guitar body. Nevertheless, the first part of the symbol which needed to be done before anything next was the Radagon's rune or Radagon's seal, and to make it look as just a background was exactly what I aimed for, so it doesn't interfere with the rings as much. The symbol was all about creating plywood templates and routing with guiding bushing. I remember me ranting about the uselessness of trigonometry and geometry when I was in high school. When will I ever use all this stuff in real life? And I guess this is it. This hobby is all about pencil and ruler. When I had this symbol engraved, instead of epoxy with a pigment, I decided to spray the channels with golden acrylic lacquer and then pour a clear coat of epoxy over it. This guitar will eventually have golden hardware, so to make it the symbol look golden seems to me like the best option. The clear layer of epoxy over golden acrylic gave it a great 3D look as well. After I made control cavity, I drilled holes for ferrules. This guitar will have strings go through the body. If I would just put black humbucker pickups in the body, it would really interfere with the flow of the Elden Ring symbol. So I had to make custom pickup covers, and I started the same way I was doing the symbol in the body. So I picked curly maple and traced the geometry of the rings and the routed channels, sprayed them and poured in the clear epoxy again, and then used tons of double-sided tape to hold the templates for routing the outer shape of these covers, and also templates for routing the cavity. This job was definitely the strongest denial of need for a CNC machine. All the walls were just around 2.5 mm thick. I tested the fit and it was perfect. I was then able to carve a few curves to the body, so it's more comfortable to play. Before hammering the fret wire in, I had to file down the ends of tanks of each fret. I used fret wire from Warwick, they are made from bell brass. But I'm pretty sure Warwick just buys these from a company called Symptoms. The bell brass is not as hard as stainless steel, but still definitely harder than nickel. I wanted my frets to be brass, to be at least a bit matching the color of the rest of the hardware parts. The rest of the fretwork was the same as usual: leveling, crowning, rounding the edges, removing tool marks and polishing. For the leveling, you have to be sure to have your fretboard absolutely flat and the neck must be supported so it doesn't bend and move at all during the leveling process. For polishing, I just use steel wool and a bit of polishing compound. I also tapped in threaded inserts for the pickup screws. Staining the top and the headstock black was really easy with alcohol-based stain, but it's so thin that in few spots it soaks even to the parts which I masked with a tape. That was really annoying to sand it carefully out. Maybe next time I will choose a different type of stain. As a clear coat I chose True Oil. It was my first time working with True Oil, so it took me some time to learn how to apply it. But after 3 coats I lightly sanded the finish with a steel wool and then applied another 3 coats with sanding between each coat. So that's 6 coats in total, and I think it's enough. It looks and feels amazing. The trick is to apply a very thin layer and wipe almost immediately. It was a bit tricky to acquire this amount of unalloyed golden hardware parts. I had to steal and melt tons of my grandma's jewelry, just kidding. First I tapped in the ferrules with my hammer taped, and then I installed locking tuners from Gotoh. In my country we pronounce it Gotoh. I have my custom pickups from Lokvenc Guitars. This guy is from the same country. Check him out, he does a really great job. We talk about tone I would like to achieve, so I sent him Swedish band Orbit Culture to get the idea. This Framus Webster Nut made from brass is absolutely awesome because you can adjust the height of each slot. This gave me more freedom to set up the guitar. Also, the tunematic bridge from Schaller has individual string spacing adjustments. And just in case there was not enough gold on this guitar, I've put on these golden strings. In the end, I set up the guitar for nice and low string action. If you would have any questions about this build, just leave a comment or you can text me directly on my Instagram. I also put there more pictures of all my guitars. Now let's see the final result. Thank you for watching, guys. See you next time.